I could do the intro music for you. Dun,
No.
dun, 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 dun. All right, Walt.
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. But it's just every time we're hanging out together, where sometimes you call me and we talk for like half an hour about something interesting, and I'm like, damn it.
Should have been on the
That
podcast.
conversation would have been a great podcast. Or it's just, doesn't have to be a podcast, but it's just a great conversation that I think a bunch of foilers would like to have, right? So that's a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's just so much happening in foiling right now, right? Like we've had this wild summer, which, it's interesting coming back to Puerto Rico because when you get here, it's all about the surf here. Not to say downwinding isn't a thing and the wind sports and kiting, but man, the waves are just they're so ingrained in the surf culture here. And as a foiler, like you find that. But then we take off for the summers and go do all this downwinding. At least my journey was, right. And it was just like downwinding. That was a cool journey. And as that happens, right, then the peri-wing comes out. And so I don't know. It's just like every few months, there's some whole new piece of the puzzle and so much to talk about and think about. It's like we can never get out of that beginning cycle of foiling where everything's just exploding, right? It's just still going. Every time you think it's going to slow down,
Yeah.
here we go again.
So, because now you're back in Puerto Rico. You've been here for, I don't know, 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah, it's like 5 days.
Sessioned every day, right?
Yeah.
Waves have been kicking.
Awesome.
And like just what you said about the waves in Puerto Rico. So I've had a lot of conversations with people, AWSI, Maui, and we talk about Puerto Rico, and everyone's always asking me, well, why did you move to Puerto Rico? I was like, well, Puerto Rico wasn't on the map for kiteboarding when I decided that I wanted to open up a school. And I thought about what's coming up now with winging and foiling. And I don't know why Puerto Rico never took off as a kite destination. For sure, it's people marketing it, right? So we spend marketing dollars to bring people to Puerto Rico to kiteboard with us or to take lessons with us. But in the past, there hasn't been that much influence to bring people to Puerto Rico for that purpose. The tourism company hasn't, funded it to bring people in. But also, there's so many amazing kite destinations around the world. And what are people looking for? Strong wind or not strong wind, consistency, flat water or waves, or there's a lot of these specifications. And I think Puerto Rico is really an amazing kite destination, but it's very average in its wind strength. It's very 15 to 20. We get choppy waters, it's American. So it's not like you go to Dominican Republic, you can spend a week there and spend pennies. Puerto Rico's a little bit more pricey, right? But then I was thinking about foiling and winging, and I'm like, my God, what an amazing wing foil destination. You don't need 30 knots, 25 knots. You doesn't matter if it's choppy. We have beautiful sandy beaches out in Ocean Park, especially. And then you go out, I don't know, it's not even half a mile, which is nothing on a foil. It's 2 tacks. Kite surfing, it's 7 tacks, right? I don't know. So I was thinking about that, and yeah, it's about the waves. We get such amazing waves almost all year.
They're such a great size too, right? The size and intensity. I mean, we get big waves here in the winter, right? Double.
Yeah, there's sometimes that you're that's scary.
Yeah, exactly. But on the reg, it's this nice kind of 2 to 6 foot, and that's just such a great size for foiling. Yeah, and it's so funny you talk about the wind here and kite destination, right? It's all perspective. For me, coming from Charleston, where I was learning to kite, I came here, I was like, oh my God, it's nuking. Yeah. It's blowing so hard. And now it's so funny after coming back from a journey in Hood River and Maui and coming back, it's that's not really that intense a wind, but for things like wing foiling, wing surfing specifically, right? Yeah. Man, that wind is just perfect to keep you moving on the foil, but not, destroying the waves and allowing you to still perform without you can ride in a 20-mile-an-hour wind on a good wave straight into the wind, right? That's not a problem. Whereas you start looking at 30 miles an hour, it starts to really kind of change the way that wave feels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
That's cool. You want to talk about, because we didn't really dip into your summer and our summer.
Mm-hmm.
So Maui.
Yeah, you were there for like half of it. So
Yeah. So Maui,
mm-hmm.
and then Hood River, and then you were in Charleston a little bit, and then now Puerto Rico. And I guess it's your summer kind of started. How long have you been away from Puerto Rico?
It's like almost 5 months. Yeah, I went to Hood River in May or in like end of May.
Started in Hood River.
Started Hood River.
Then went to
Yeah.
Maui.
Well, I had this plan.
Sorry, not Hood River. Actually, someone made a comment on one of the podcasts. He's like, it's funny hearing people that are not from
Right,
the
it's the
area.
Gorge.
It's the Gorge, right? So that's what's in my head. But yeah, the Gorge, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so I started there and just kind of that place was just I'd been there a few times, but I hadn't really been there after I knew how to downwind and like being there as an actual downwinder, not somebody who was trying to learn to downwind.
Yeah.
It really just blew my mind, and I quickly like my partner really loved it, and it was great for the dogs and stuff. So we quickly like changed our whole summer plans to be like, we're just gonna stay here all summer. And then I took off to go to Maui with you guys for a few weeks, which was super fun. But yeah, it was pretty eye opening. I mean, a really special place to get to play in the wind, and the downwinding there. It's kind of like the place was built for it. It was like it's a great destination for obviously the freestyle winging and big air kite and windsurfing back in the day and all those things. I mean, it's an incredible spot, but man, it really shines for downwind because the wind's gusty and it just works.
Again, I was talking to somebody about kiting, and they're like, where should I go throughout my travels throughout the year? And he's like, I think I'm going to go to Hood River. I'm like, to go kiting in Hood River, like the event site there, it's pretty gusty. The wind's not great. It's like
it's an experience though, right? And it's cool.
And you can go upwind from there. And then the other spots along the gorge, sketchy launches. Like if you're a good kiter, then it's fine. And there are some epic conditions, but man, it's just these places are just so good for foiling, right? Winging.
Yeah, and the downwinding specifically there because of the current, right?
Yeah.
And the way it slows the wave down, it just creates this steeper, slower moving, more predictable set of bumps.
Yeah.
That is one, I think, easier to pop up in, and then definitely easier to navigate because you aren't having to push so hard to keep up with the energy, right? Like you're able to kind of sit in it more, and it's and even like the littlest bump, because it's so steep, it just has a lot of push to it. It was definitely the thing I realized leaving that and going to visit, last couple weeks ago, I was in Charleston visiting Chris, my buddy over there, and got a few days of it was blowing like 13 maybe. And I was up there on the 5 meter peri-wing and just similar size, small bumps. And, coming off of Hood River thinking like, okay, this is the foil I can ride in these kind of conditions. I was, rudely awakened to the fact that my 860 in those kind of super tiny bumps that are super flat is just not going to work. Right. And so I think Hood River just, it becomes this skate park in a weird way of foiling, of downwinding.
Well, you have to pick a totally different foil for that place.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I didn't realize that till like the end of the season.
Yeah, because you're on your surf foils towards the end, right? Or not?
Yeah, I switched to surf foils. I mean, I was just so focused on not sucking in Maui was really the motivation of the first half of my summer. So all I was doing was riding those R's because I was like, I know I got to ride these when I get to Maui, and it was great. The R's, the code R series, like the 860 was like my go-to, and then went down to the 770, and then obviously the 770 was my go-to in Maui. But yeah, when I came back, I kind of was like, okay, well, I should probably throw my 980 on or whatever, since I rode those all winter. And I did one run. And I was like, I'm an idiot. I should have been riding this the whole time. It's just because, again, you don't need to go that fast. You don't have to have that endurance and glide and that speed. Wow, it's a very loud AC that just got off. I probably
didn't realize it.
It was just ripping, right? Yeah, but you don't need that glide and speed there. It's fun. It's fun to have it because you can just overtake bumps.
All right. Well, I won't say that.
It'll be like, bleep. What did he say?
Highlights. Best.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Best Maui session.
Yeah. So
best gear suited for that session, because you just go. You have all the foils in your big fat van. Oh, first of all,
yeah,
just letting everyone know, if you ever go to these places like Hood or Maui or whatever, and you want to get in with the downwinders, get a big fat van.
Yeah, get the big commercial van. I agree. It's the best. It's definitely
Like, you don't have to get a commercial. You get a minivan with no seats in it. Dude, that thing is sick. By the way, I sold my truck, bought a minivan.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, you need to talk about your journey. You literally went on this trip, drove a minivan for 3 weeks, came back and sold your dream car, your 2007 Tacoma, and got a Honda Odyssey, which is a solid fucking choice for a minivan. So I'm really proud of you. I mean, it is like the minivan. It's great. It's great. I rode in it today. It was a beautiful minivan. It's special.
Yeah.
It's tremendous minivan.
Yeah, I definitely missed the Tacoma and what it can do, because it's a 2007. It was great. 60,000 miles. Amazing.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
It was money.
And I didn't care. Like, I just don't care about it. Like, you don't have to care about it. It's a Toyota. You drive up on curbs. You go through potholes. Like, it's flooded. Like, one of the guys that was living in our compound was like, I was away, and he's like, "Oh, it's gonna rain. It's definitely gonna flood. Do you want me to move your truck?" I'm like, "No, that truck is made to be flooded." I was like, "Don't move it. I don't care. Like, it'll be fine." But the minivan, a little bit more careful. You have to be a little bit more careful. Yeah, it's low to the ground. Like, it scrapes on like big potholes, but
yeah. So, anyways, back
gear and stuff
to vans. Yeah. So, yeah, I started my trip by renting an Enterprise rental van. I feel like there's not enough foilers for it to really blow it up, but I think people are kind of getting the U-Hauls, but the hack is definitely go for the Enterprise commercial vans, because they don't get you on miles.
They don't get you on miles, and also you can drive and sit in the front and be part of the vibe that's sitting in the back, right? It's all like, it is one piece.
Yeah, it's all open.
The U-Haul, it's like you sit in the front, you're driving this truck, and you're sitting bucket seat with whoever's beside you, and then you got all the people in the back, which is kind of the fun part about downwinding is, shooting the shit with all these people, right?
Yeah, like we had some pretty epic loads of folks, especially in Maui, right?
Oh, that was sick.
Yeah. So anyway,
12 people or something.
yeah. I think it was 12 that one run. 12 people, 10 boards.
That's sick.
Hood, it's just everybody's got a van, and it's like foil Disneyland, right? Like, and it's so wild because it's all about these thermals and how the wind is generated between, basically it's cold in Portland and it's hot in the desert, and how does that create wind? And so that changes depending on the incoming weather. So, we're waking up every morning, following a couple of different blogs, and they're telling you every day, they're waking up and telling you what the forecast is, because you don't know where it's going to be good. And then you're chasing that wind up and down the gorge. Some days I'd have like 3 hours of windshield time to go get a session, but it was blowing 40 out east and out in the desert. It's super worth it. So that place was super crazy and magical, and everybody's got a van, and nobody takes their gears apart, and you just throw your gear in vans and like catch rides. And it's just it's like a wild experience. And again, very, foiling inherently has some risk, but pretty risk-free, right? Like, roads on both sides. You're in a river. You're not going to get eaten by a sturgeon or a Chinook or a king salmon. So, and just incredible conditions.
You could get run over by a barge.
You definitely have some. There's lots of boat traffic for sure. Yeah. That's something you got to pay attention for. Yeah, I mean, it's still legit out there, and and I think the wild piece of the gorge is that in those moments where it does all line up and it's like one day a month or something, maybe in the peak season, you get these just incredible 50, 60 mile an hour winds that just completely change the way water looks and feels and the way you perform on it. And like, I mean, it's obviously pretty crazy trying to go out in those conditions, but it's totally doable. And it changes. It goes from being like what you perceive as waves to just these like giant rolling kind of wavelengths of this just blistered surface, right? Where every little white cap that tries to form just gets obliterated into smoke and like vaporizes. And so there's just a mist everywhere. And, there's 50 mile an hour gusts, and it's somewhere between, kind of backcountry snowboarding, towing and downwinding going out in those conditions. It's just really like super wild. And I think that to me, that was just otherworldly, that experience, getting a couple of those days. So that's what made Hood so special for me. And then getting to go to Maui again was awesome. What's up? Oh, the Gorge. Yeah, I know. Why do I do? See, because see, now that I've been there for a whole season, I got homies and stuff. I probably should start referring to it as the Gorge instead of what we here in Puerto Rico call it Hood River, because that's where AWSI is. That's where Free and Brewing is. That's where we go to the event site. But now we don't need to, right? We're on the Washington side the whole time now. Yeah, so it was dope. It was dope. And obviously, yeah, looking forward to seeing the boys. The crew is epic. Crew is epic. There's so many great people.
Your best session there, like spot condition wise.
I don't know.
No, you just had.
Well, yeah, actually, it's always like it's a progression, right? Like you're having better sessions all the time right now because
we're there.
So cool.
Yeah,
but probably like my first full run on the peri-wing at Rufus, I cleaned the run. It's 7 miles and like 35, 40 mile an hour winds, just cranking turns on the 980. It was in like the sunset, like the sun setting. It was one of the most like magical water sports, whatever moments of my life. So that was really cool. That was probably like the highlight. Also, with some really good dudes. It was a good crew. It was kind of end of the season. So that was probably it for sure. But man, so an uncountable amount of awesome sessions though in Hood. It was so fun.
When you went to Hood, first of all, sup foiling. Went to Maui to meet with us, and you cut your Maui trip shorter than what we had anticipated because you were having such a good time in Hood. That you didn't need to go to Maui for the 1 month that you thought you were going to.
Well, I was going to go for like 2 months, right? And I changed it to 3 weeks, which worked out. And it was, I have a partner and dogs, and it all made sense to spend more time in Hood. But yeah, Maui was stacked. You were there. Got to catch up with Mickey and Roy, which those guys were sending super hard.
Sup foiling. Sup downwind.
Yeah, this is before way
in the past.
Yeah.
Before.
Like 4 months ago, like pre peri-wing, PPW. There's BPW and PPW. That's it.
I love how it's like, because it
or APW, whatever. Anyways,
because it's not that long ago, but it feels it's so distant because
I don't even know where my paddle is now.
Yeah.
I didn't even
trying to find the best paddle, and now you're like, I don't even know. I don't know
if I'm going to use it again. No, I'm just kidding. It's an incredible discipline, and I think the ocean is a wild beast where there's times that probably a sup and a paddle are the right vessel. But I think for a lot of the stuff we want to do, the peri-wings quickly changed all that. And so, we were in Maui, before it came out. Obviously, the pocket wing was out. We saw the pocket wing.
You had a pocket wing.
I had a pocket wing that I tried like once, was very challenging. And I was like, I'm going to get to that later. I'm going to just keep downwinding. I got a lot of...
Because because your progression...
But I still only had it. I only had the pocket wing. Like I got it like a week before I came to Maui. So I still just got it this summer.
And you were really like dialing in your sup. Like you're downwinding in Hood.
Yeah.
And that was like really where it took over.
Yeah, I was trying to really level up because I was like
trying to do it in Puerto Rico, but then it didn't line up in the West for you. We had a lot of good conditions over here on like in San Juan area.
Yeah, like I learned over the summer, had a great summer last year. I only probably got like 10 runs in this winter, and the surf was great. And so I just it was a weird low wind West season, right? And I think I kind of chose to wing on some of the days, whatever. I just kind of wasn't there for the conditions we had. Whereas as soon as that, I didn't even bring anything. I just brought my foil bag and my downwind board and a paddle, no wings, no nothing up. Like that's all I'm doing this summer. We're just going to go downwind. So I was just putting the work in.
And you didn't wing once, no?
Nope.
You haven't been winging.
I haven't touched a wing since the spring. Yeah. Just because, I don't know. I'm very singular focus, and it's like, okay, I want to get good at this. I got to put the time in, and that was great. It was totally worth it. And it was great to get to do all the runs. And obviously Maliko is a magical run, right? And in Maui, I think that's, getting that on the right day. It's just the energy out there and how fast those bumps are moving and how big the water is pretty incredible. But man, we had a ton of Kihei days. Like I never So and that's just surfing. Again, feels more like it's wind driven bumps, more lined up, steeper. Feels a lot like Hood River, except for like way out in the middle of the ocean with incredible riders like Kane and Gabby and all the regs, right? And everybody was there sending. So that was a pretty great 3 weeks of just charging. Where I was just hanging on for dear life.
I had really killer Maliko runs, and they were super fun. The first day was like it just scared me, you know. I'm like going out there with a new board, like 9.4.
All right, Dylan, could you tell everybody what you flew to Maui for 3 weeks to go downwinding with? What did you bring with you as far as your quiver, paddles, boards? I mean, yeah, just go ahead. It's probably gonna be a long list.
I brought a 80, a high modulus north mast with a 70 fuse, a 142 tail, and a 750 downwind foil. That's it.
That's all you brought.
And hard.
So legit, Dylan was
on no paddle.
I think the first 5 days he was on a different board every single day for the first 5 days.
I didn't need to, and I knew that. So
him complaining about what board he was riding and being on new gear, I would say is his own fault.
Never complained. No, it was just always a shock. The first day was a shock because I'd never been on anything over 8 foot.
Well, we should talk about Frank, right? So we show up. We've all got these boards made by Frank, and he's just an amazing shaper. Yeah, Frank foil boards.
I did an epic podcast with him. I didn't do an epic podcast. He did an epic podcast.
Yeah, that you facilitated. Exactly. Yeah. He's just so talented, such a good dude, and also rips, which is super cool. We got to do a bunch of runs with him, but he's making these really progressive boards that are just light and fast and surf well. And so anyways, he made us all these 9-footers, and we're coming from like all of us are on like sub 8 foot, and I'm on this little, he made me one for Hood River that I was riding all spring. It's an 8-footer, but he draws his tail out to just this incredible point, right? Which I think makes the board pretty fast, and it releases nice, and it looks
with like
super
a little
cool.
bit of a rocker on it.
I call it a banana board. Like I can't set it on its top, or it's the foil tip over on that board. Like I have to have it like on a lump or padded or something, which is kind of annoying when you're trying to stash your gear. So you got to be careful. I definitely chipped a few foils, but so he makes these incredible boards, and they feel smaller than they are, right? Like, so that 8-footer really feels like a 7.6 or something. So we all show up and we're hopping on these custom 9-footers that are 16 wide, and it is a incredible ocean vessel. You can paddle it so fast. You can paddle up the smallest foil so easily. It's like too fast. It's crazy. I mean, I think it's makes a ton of sense there for what they're doing on those runs.
I've never paddled into groundswell.
Yeah,
never.
I've
always chipped into like
little bump.
Little wind swell. I've never gone into the groundswell, which is what
we're doing out there. What they're doing out there.
Yeah, with that big, long, narrow, fast board. And so it's just a shock.
Well, it's crazy. It's a totally different takeoff, right? Like, because when you're thinking of little wind chops, you're pumping and you're kind of ollieing that board out of the water until you can get that pump, and then you're off, right? And you've got some energy and some glide, and you kind of figure it out from there. This, you just wait till that big groundswell comes, you put 2 strokes in at the top, and it just takes off down the ramp, and you can just feel this thing just like drop and accelerate. And I mean, it's 16 inches wide, 9 foot. I mean, some of the guys are making 9.4.
I was on a 9.4.
You were on a 9.4 from the 710 that mark board.
7.4.
7.4. Yeah. Classic Dylan. Anyways, and a totally different pump too, right? Like it almost it's like almost wanting to pump for you.
Right.
So I committed to it for all the Maliko runs. I use my short board for Kihei. I don't know how much more of that I'll be doing as far as like, I just don't, I'm not a racer. So like, I think I'd rather be on a shorter board, but it was really cool to get it, and that feeling and the ease of paddling up a small foil was really, really cool. Anyway, so looking forward to, he's making a bunch of mid-lengths and stuff for us. This is my Uber Eats.
Oh, cool.
So we're gonna have to pause it.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Where were we?
I don't know.
We were Maui fast boards.
Frank,
what a legend. Oh yeah. So Frank's making, it was great. So I'm just, it's my communication with Frank is always like, I have a random thought about a board, and then I just text him, And then usually it's like I text him, and because he's in Maui and I'm here or whatever,
it takes forever.
Yeah. Instead, this time I texted him, and it was like the moment I sent it, he sent me a text right back. He's like, "Yeah, I'm shaping a bunch of stuff right now. I'm trying to catch up. I'm making a board for Mickey, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, okay,
there's a list. There's some people not very happy about Frank's list.
It's a long list. Yeah.
Mickey.
Oh, Mickey. Yeah. He's
like,
he's
why'd you have to,
up?
You're like, why'd you have to talk about Frank? Like, he's not popular because of the X Foils podcast, but I think he's popular because he makes some pretty.
I think you should go ahead and take credit for it. Yeah, I mean, his boards they're very progressive, and I think he's just kind of taking little bits and pieces from what everybody's doing there in Maui and kind of applying it through his Italian lens. Frank's boards kind of look like Frank, right? Like Frank just embodies the boards he makes.
I don't know what that means.
I don't even know either, but it made me feel good to say it. So yeah, he's making some mid lengths now, which would be cool.
Because you left your 810 in Maui thinking you'd go back to Maui and you'd use that board or whatever.
I'm kind of a gear hoarder, so I was just going to keep it, even though I didn't love riding such a long board. I was like, keep it in the closet. Maybe I'll need it. What if it's like, maybe I'll need it,
Yeah.
Or if not, it was a really pretty board, even though Sinbad told me it looked like a rainbow turd.
Your rainbow turd board. They are pretty spectacular.
I wear the rainbow turd badge with honor.
Yeah, they look way cooler in person.
Yeah. So anyway.
So you left that board there because you're like, I'm going to go back to Maui eventually. I'll have.
I totally tangented you. Sorry.
And then you came, and as we were leaving, the peri-wing came out, right?
Yes.
You get to hood.
Legit. What? One day before we leave, it's like,
yeah.
And we got there, and Sinbad had told me like
crazy I was.
Oh, you were insane. So one day, right when we got there, I'm talking about the pocket wing because obviously I'm interested in it. We're all interested in it because the application of being on a smaller board sounds really cool, especially after spending a lot of time in Hood. I'm like, oh man, that'd be awesome. I need to figure that out. And so we get there. I'm talking to Sinbad about it. She just got back from doing the 3 races. And she was like, yeah. So Greg is from BRM I've seen him working on something. It looks pretty cool. He's able to go upwind way better on it. Seems more stable in the window and whatever. But I mean, again, this is before I've even done it. We've just talked about it. And then 2.5 weeks later, boom, the posts come out, it drops. And it's literally 2 days before both of us leave the island. So we're both running around trying to find one. We got to see one and touch it at least, which is cool.
Yeah. We could have just bought one.
Yeah. We would have just got online and we could have bought one and probably gone to his house and gotten it. But we were just too dumb for that. We were
I don't
surely I have to know a guy.
Yeah.
I gotta find a guy.
I was emailing him, trying to get a demo. He's like, you gotta just buy one. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, stupid me. Yeah. Just
buy one.
Yeah. So anyway, so then I go back to Hood. Meanwhile, I have ordered one, and he ships me one pretty quickly thereafter. And then it was all over.
Yeah, you put your paddle away.
Yeah, once I tried the peri-wing. It was, I mean, I got it in a weird window, and I think this is going to happen to most of us, right? You get a new piece of gear, and then all of a sudden, like probably what's happened to Mickey right now.
Yeah.
And Hector, and it shows up. Exactly. And you don't have any wind. So I was going out and trying to use it in a 4 meter and 15 miles an hour wind. I don't know what I'm doing. So it was pretty tough. I got one session like that, and I got on foil. And on the downwind board, definitely learned. I think it's more challenging to try and learn to peri-wing on a downwind board in some ways. I think having something a little wider is better. I do think they build speed fast, but just throw out a sail that's big enough to give you the power to get on foil. But the downwind kind of tracks, the board wants to track, and the peri-wing, when you're first learning, it's kind of taking you wherever the hell it wants to go. So you really want being on something that's more like a wing board on your knees where you can kind of track with it. I think makes it a little easier for popping up that first time. But yeah, I'm riding the 60 liter KT Super K. It's like a 5.9, 8 or 19 and a half wide. And I feel like for me at 170 pounds, it's a pretty pretty perfect vessel for this, somewhere kind of between, it's these mid lengths, right? I think mid lengths are really the board that can do it all, especially when it comes to peri-wing. So I'm having Frank make me a 6-footer now.
Yeah. So you sold that thing and you're, so I know that we talked before that we've been on this journey together to find a foil.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's all come together now and you've found your foils.
I mean, there's always another foil. There's always, the grass is always greener.
This has been the longest period that you've stuck with a foil.
Yeah, I'm just not thinking about anything else.
Not thinking about changing or doing anything else because you're extremely satisfied with code.
I'm in love.
And you're at your most progressive point within your foiling, right? You just you honed in the downwinding, sup, paddle up, and then you were just shredding all summer long in Hood, in Maui, in Hood, in Charleston, and now, Puerto Rico. You've had so many sessions under and you're honed into it. And now your obsession, especially now because you've gone from sup, trying to figure out what sup you want, and then going into peri-winging and foil driving, right? The obsession, the obsession is finding the perfect board.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were talking about, yes, that was one of the things we were talking about in the car,
which was and it was
mind blowing.
It was a conversation that I think would have gone on for hours, right? Of trying to find,
because the foil was everything, right? And it is everything. It's still such a, it really, probably the driving force of your experience is the foil that you're on, right? But they've all gotten so good.
Foil and the mast, yeah.
Foil and the mast, yeah. The whole thing.
Yeah.
And they've all gotten so fucking good in the last few years. I think, a testament to the commitment of all of these designers and companies to just keep pushing and throwing money at stuff. Because God, look at the pace of innovation. And I always kind of joke about it, but we've got to buy this gear. If we don't buy the gear, they can't make the new shit, right? So I think you gotta buy it.
You're an investor.
I'm investing in the future of foiling. And these companies
all of you foil fans,
we're all investing in the future of foiling.
Investors in the next evolution of foils.
Here's the one thing we 100% know, that everything that we are currently riding or probably will ride in the next 3 years will be insanely irrelevant in 5 years and probably 5 or 10, whatever. Who cares? All I'm trying to say. Exactly.
No,
it's
I think now it's at a pretty it's a pretty interesting point that the foils have come a long way, and to be 3 times as good as what they are now. I agree.
It's
got to be 5 years.
Yeah,
I don't know, unless we're levitating on a magnet.
I know, right? I also have learned with this freaking sport, stop. I keep thinking we're at the end of it, and then this new thing happens, right? And totally changes the way you think about it. So, yeah, what does the peri-wing do? What is it? How does it change? Accessibility of downwinding. Now everybody who is a winger has a basic skill set to transition into a powered source to get you on foil to start downwinding. Yeah. Downwinding is an art and a craft. And how do you reading the water and doing that? That's a whole cardio and
I talked
journey.
about this on with the Generic Foil Podcast boys, that even a foil drive, it's not none of the peri-wing, the paddle, the foil drive, none of it's really a cheat code. You can't, of course, the foil drive is a motor, so it's by far the easiest power source to get you up and going, but you can't just buy a foil drive and go downwind. It could still.
You can motor downwind. You can motor from point A to point B, but to downwind,
it's
anything hard. That is hard. But to actually use the energy and connect.
The energy, get up on foil and go. Get yourself downwind on a foil and stay on foil. What source of energy do you want to use?
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't use a foil drive to go downwind. right?
I think it's super rad. I think it's just, it can be a little clumsy. I haven't put enough work into it. I did one run and I can downwind, so I never really went back to
And
it.
I was going to use the foil drive to downwind because I want. All right,
All right, we're back again. Hey,
technical difficulties.
So I think, and I think it's kind of like Greg wasn't maybe intending for, from what I understand, was maybe not obviously understood there was a downwind application, but really his vision for this is for this to be a new form of a wing for winging, for sailing, for surfing, for whatever. And obviously its ability to sail and then collapse and pack away, which we should talk about that whole thing, because that's a fucking clusterfuck and it's hilarious. The funniest part of the whole journey of learning to peri-wing. But it is really interesting that, like, that's what it opens up. It now turns anybody who has I would say an intermediate to advanced wing skill set now has the ability to go out and start learning to peri-wing.
Yeah.
And now if you can peri-wing, now you can downwind, and you really kind of bypass the month of brutal work that it takes to get.
Yeah, you don't need to be a paddler, right?
You don't need to paddle to downwind now.
But you can also learn how to downwind with a wing. Like,
we've all kind of tried it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a nuisance and it's heavy and it drags behind you.
You can start to learn.
Why would this fuel people more into wanting to downwind? Why would it?
Well, I think it's like if you're in a place where you want to be downwinding, right? And
it stresses you a little bit more on foil, right? Because you don't have the wing in your hand. You pack it up. You can't. Yeah, you can pack it up, and then when you're about to fall off foil, like throw it up. Like it's like
no,
you're downwinding. That's not going to happen.
Look, it's not easier
for surfing.
It's not necessarily easier to downwind. Look, you don't have the paddle, which the paddle is an amazing tool in your journey downwinding. I think a lot of people as beginners, you use the paddle a lot in the ocean. You use the paddle a ton. You're obviously not a beginner, but you use it for other reasons. For downwinding, like,
use the paddle a ton.
Yeah, for surfing, really use them in turns more.
Oh,
you don't use it to power yourself.
Yeah,
but like, I mean,
it's great tool of leverage.
I mean, what I did, I think I broke like 3 paddles hitting it with my foil before I stopped using my paddle so much. But it is like that moment when you're up on foil and you're like trying to keep with the energy and your cardio is bonking, your legs are bonking. That paddle all of a sudden can give you a little rescue, and now you're not going to have that when you collapse that peri-wing. You're free.
But that's the thing, too. When you're paddling up and you're learning how to paddle, I got my heart rate up to 202, right? And then I'm up on foil. I'm about to vomit.
Yeah, and
now I need to learn. So I just wonder, what does your heart rate get up to trying to get up on the peri-wing? Is it that strenuous?
Well, even if you learn to sail it, if you're a competent winger, you can sail around until your heart rate comes down and then collapse it and go, right? So when you paddle up, I mean, your heart rate is obviously super high. And I think that first, like, dude, the first 60 seconds is so critical, right? Like, because you're trying to bring your heart rate down, find a good bump, not freak out.
60 seconds.
30 seconds. It feels like an hour. Like, it's so brutal. I mean, again, it's the hardest. I don't know, maybe like the hardest athletic thing I've ever had to do is learn to paddle up a 18-inch wide board out in the middle of the ocean onto foil. Like, it's just so silly challenging, and then stay on foil. Like, do that and then move from that into, I've composed myself, my heart rate sub 150, and now I'm charging, again, you get to, but it's crazy. You turn that corner and then all of a sudden, you're doing dry runs, and you're doing, you do 1 mile, and then all of a sudden you do 3, and then all of a sudden you're doing 7 or 10. And then it comes down to like, how much do you, like, when do you want to give up on your focus, or when do you want to like start pushing your turns and start pushing your performance and whatever. So, but it's a really tough over that first hurdle. Yeah. And I think peri-wing, it just sets you up in this place where your heart rate's going to be lower. You can really come into that first little go with some speed too, which is another thing, is that, like, just like when you huck yourself into a wave with a wing, you've got all this speed and inertia that you get to carry in, which is harder with the sup.
Yeah, which sometimes doesn't help.
No, it
You
doesn't.
know, like when I'm doing downwinders, let's say I get thrown in with a jet ski, you accelerate at such a speed that you just blow by bumps that you needed to harness
Mhm.
energy from, and then you lose focus. You're like you're going too fast, and then you think you need to stay that fast. So it can get confusing. But when you're on a sup, you are going so slow
Well,
already,
you're in the
right? And
you
you're like
pop up
you're
on
in
the
it.
thing you're on.
You're pop up, and you're in the energy already, and you're like okay, and then you have to figure out how to maintain that speed on foot. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I think what it is we were both pretty decent downwinders with a sup before we learned to peri-wing. And we were both pretty decent wingers before we learned to peri-wing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're gonna have to have an interview with some. It's we have a weird perspective, right? Like because we already knew how to read the bumps. So
I know
for me, the peri-wing was like as soon as I hooked
for
myself
me, I
in, I
know
could
my
see.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
I can see it from other people's eyes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's a superpower.
It is. It's because I think of it as an interest like an industry hole. I no, I don't know if you know what I mean. Stop it. But I can see it from somebody that doesn't know how to wing or somebody that doesn't know how to downwind or someone that doesn't like
Mhm.
I I try to understand it from that point of view. But yeah, we're talking from our
Yeah.
perspective, of course.
I think it's as simple as the fact that it is really hard to paddle up a sup. Super worthy, an incredible
Yeah.
journey to get there. And once you master it, I mean, you can just go out in any conditions and do it. But the
Yeah.
peri-wing definitely gets you in there faster.
And then let's like stay on the subject of peri-wing for downwinding purposes only for like for a little bit,
Okay.
just for a second, because I'm going to sidetrack, but I want to come down to using it only for downwinding because that's not the only use case, and that's not the use case that it was made for. Because I was peri-winging or whatever, parachuting up in Hood River, the gorge,
The Gorge
and
with your trash bag.
yeah, and then one day I didn't have the board that I wanted or the foil that I wanted or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to paddle up. So I grabbed a paddle again and I was paddling up, and it felt very free to be on the paddle because I could paddle myself up. For sure, the like the surfing down the river didn't feel as critical because I was on a longer board, but I felt like I could take more risk because every time I fell and I got back up, I knew I could paddle up within, 5 seconds because I already know how to paddle. So I'm talking about the perspective of someone that already knows how to paddle, learning how to peri-wing. You did it, and you don't think you want to paddle again.
I will. I
Right.
do want to paddle again. I just know that like I'm happier on a smaller board out there.
Yeah.
And I,
But
dude, I love
it just didn't feel
the
like
go-go gadget pouch and like packing your shit away. I don't know. It's just all the nerdy weird stuff that I like. I feel like a superhero out there. I'm like Batman.
go gadget peri-wing.
Exactly.
But I fell 6 times on that run with the sup foil and paddling, and it was just awesome to get back on my board.
Six times.
Yeah, because I was getting critical.
Just going crazy.
Yeah, and I'd paddle back up, and it just wasn't, especially because you're in the gorge, right? It's so easy to paddle up
Hood River.
in Hood River, so it didn't feel like such a big deal. And then when I was because it was very much in the beginning, every time I was with the peri-wing and I'd fall, it felt like such an ordeal again, like to get it out of my, the kangaroo pouch and like, make sure the lines are not twisted and get myself situated on it and get myself up, get some speed and like figure out where it wanted to go and what I wanted to do with it, and then get up on foil and then pack it away again and then continue on my downwinding, right? And it felt, when I went from doing it on the peri-wing, it felt amazing. I was like, this is amazing. Then I went paddling and then I went back to the peri-wing and I was like, damn, I almost, if I just don't feel bothered by it, I just would prefer to paddle myself up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that well, that was where you were, but you get to a comfortability with the peri-wing that packing it away or pulling it out is like,
It's just
right. So there's an ease
and it
to
doesn't matter, especially like,
but I also don't think we should act like it's easy, right? It's not easy. It's definitely
it's not.
significantly harder than winging, I think, as a pop-up goes.
For sure.
Significantly harder than winging because it's not stable. When you hold it to the wind, you hold the wing up, you feel the sail.
I mean, I do a lot of wing lessons, and there's no way I would teach somebody that has no winging or foiling experience how to para-wing.
No, it's very
Like,
technical.
Silly.
And honestly,
No
a
way.
kiting background helps a little bit too, I think.
For sure.
Because it is a clusterfuck of lines and stuff in the water and like dealing with those tangles and be able to read the lines. And I mean, it's complicated. But when you come into it carrying a lot of skills as a kiter, as a winger, as a downwinder, as a surfer, whatever it is, like all of a sudden they kind of apply to this. And I think this is the magic of the peri-wing right now is that if you've been in this sport and you've been chasing this dragon, like a lot of us have, you probably built a lot of the skills you need to pick this up pretty quickly. And then, the challenge of popping up, right? I do think that you pop up with this, sure, you figure that out. It's definitely awkward. Like you're flying it, it's powered, you're sitting on your board. There's a lot of different ways. And I don't know. I don't think we've talked about like technique for how you go from like sitting on your board to kneeling, whatever. But it's basically a one-arm pop-up sailing the peri-wing, and then from there you don't have that ability to like hold the wing and stabilize yourself and pump. You kind of have to balance on the board and just be like light on your feet and lowly kind of hop it out of the water. And obviously that's more challenging than a traditional like wing start. But once you're up, now you got this thing and you're going downwind. And how do I get it out of the air? How do I get it out of the air? How do I get it out of the air without tangling it or falling on it or whatever? And then how do I get it into this weird little fanny pack? Meanwhile, I'm trying to read the bumps, stay in the energy and keep pumping. And I think that is, the complexity and the pace of that is pretty wild at first.
When I did it my first time, I went out, popped up, whatever. It took me a minute to figure it out, get up, pack it away, and be on foil. Like, not difficult.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like you succeeded at the pack away. I mean, I'm not going to say it's like rocket science, but I don't know. I think you're hundreds of thousands of hours of packing up kites and shit in kite schools, because like we're all there just like trying to grab this thing out of the air and shove it in. And like the first day he pops up, he grabs it, tucks the bar, like wads it up, rolls it. It's all packed with a little fucking label on it and shit. Puts it in the thing. I was like, what the fuck did you just do? Whereas me, I'm more of a grab it and just start yamming it in there, right?
Somewhere else with that conversation.
All right.
It felt easy enough. I did it, but it still felt like I was trying to think of it if it wasn't me.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
It still takes some kind of concentration of being on foil and multitasking to put it away. It's not like you're just
you got to sit at home and do a lot of the stomach head thing, right?
Yeah,
a lot of that, a lot of this, just this for hours. Everybody
tap and roll, but everyone was saying that, oh, it's cool.
I call it bump and rub.
Tap and roll.
Just kidding.
That they're like, everyone's like, oh, cool, you get up and you don't have a paddle in your hand. I think it was the initial thing of like the peri-wing. They're like, oh, and you don't have a paddle. It's like, but when you get up and you have your paddle, you can use your paddle because it's useful at that point.
Paddles are
and you don't have to do anything with it. But once you peri-wing up, you have to figure out what to do with that peri-wing to stow it away, to get it out of your way, to continue on your journey.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, it's definitely nice.
That's not the problem. Holding something in my hand is
not the problem. That's what I was going to say.
And the people that go subfoiling with their paddle and a GoPro pole, additionally, ridiculous.
Yeah,
just use your
one
pole.
Yeah, rider.
Come on,
right?
Like, be real.
the paddle, you really adapt to it, and these paddles are so light. The carbon fiber paddles are so light. I would hold mine like just right ahead of the blade, where it kind of felt like the balance was best, and I wouldn't really think about it. I think more than like I don't feel inhibited in performance from the paddle. What I do feel is when I pack the sail away and I'm on mid length, right? I'm on a 5'9", but I'm standing mid board, so it feels closer to like my wing board or like prone board setup, right? As far as like what's in front of you, because you're standing really far forward if you rig your stuff right. And then you don't have anything in your hand. It just changes the way I'm feeling and thinking, right? And all of a sudden I feel more surfier, and I'm like in that kind of like hunting surfing mode opposed to whatever. And that said, I haven't had a lot of experience. I didn't do this in Maui. Like I haven't had a lot of blue water experience with the peri-wing yet. I was in a very surfy place using it. So I'm excited. I think obviously doing a few runs in Charleston where it was much more like traditional downwinding than river like wind bumps. And, obviously it works great. So I look forward to doing a lot more of it, but I think it's just built for, it gives you that, at least for me, it just changed the way I thought about, attacking the bumps and utilizing that run. And it just turned it to more surfing, which is again, like, that's really what I think everybody has different journeys. Gio, who's been on your show a lot, I mean, he's an animal. Like he's paddling up like whatever, like a 6'8" board that it's like 90 liters on a 680 with a 120 tail and just going crazy. And he's a machine, dude. He's the racing machine.
Conditions, yeah.
Yeah. For me, I just want to go surf, and I think that I'm not in it for necessarily like the same reasons he is. We're all out there to have a good time, and obviously he surfs and does whatever. But his discipline, it's more like ultra marathoning or something, But he attacks it. Whereas I'm 43. I'm not really trying to.
It's why I wanted to
I just want to go surf.
Yeah, it's why I told you the other day that I wanted to talk to Mickey. Not now, but eventually, because after he has a few sessions under his belt, because he's such a purist in the downwinding, and he started with downwinding and like so early on. If you guys haven't listened to that podcast, it's a great one about Mickey doing his downwind journeys.
Yeah, we're supposed to have beers soon so we can talk about all these things, because like it is crazy.
He hasn't had a session,
no,
really, a couple, 2 or 3, maybe 4, but I'm surprised that he's getting a board for peri-winging, and he's doing this thing because it just...
Well, he's not an idiot.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I don't think there's a single downwinder out there who you'd be like, hey, would you like to do this, but on a board that's 2 or 3 feet shorter than the board you're currently on without a paddle in your hand? And most of them would be like, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. And he's a good winger. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good winger too. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think that there's a lot to be progressed on the, I don't know if we're using the best platform for like the waist belt and the pack away. I think this works. Obviously it's a top pouch. You like stuff down. The pocket wing has like a side stuff with the cinch. And I don't know what's going to be the right thing, but I don't want to get off of downwinding, but I do think there's an application for surfing.
We're done.
We can go. Okay,
we're done with the downwinding,
because I think that's really where, like, I think about being in the surf. Like immediately getting to Puerto Rico, I'm like, okay, I'm going back to shacks. I wing surf shacks all the time. It's incredible. And we like to go out in up to overhead or like head high waves. Can't really go out winging much bigger than that without getting super wrecked, right? So like head high is kind of where you want to be. But to think about that with a peri-wing, like taking one of those waves and it being in the surf with you and you getting covered up with it, tangled, and trying to get that tangle out, launch it and take off, right? But the idea of using it in those kind of, or let's say it's not even a head high wave, let's even say it's a waist high wave or a chest high wave, it's still going to be a mess. So I think, we've got to have waist belts that we can pack them away and know that they're sealed, secure, and they're not going to come out.
I know,
right?
But like if you're paddling out,
how do you do that on foil?
Yeah, and also like thinking about you going to shacks to like ride that critical wave head high, right? On a wing, it's intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
On a peri-wing, very intimidating.
I almost think it's less.
Why? But like,
If it was packed away well and I didn't have to worry about it coming out, I surf those all the time on a
man, you'd take a turn onto one of these waves. They're big. It's critical already. You're already surfing it. How long is it going to take you to pack away that peri-wing, to conceal it, then to surf the wave?
I mean, you got to get it way out back. Like, I mean, that's the only way this. Well, I think now we're getting the nuance of like, that's how the guys are using it, right? You see Steve and those guys in Maui using it, and they're using it at Kaha, and that's a like mile long wave, right?
Yeah.
You got to have a long wave or whatever, half a mile. It's forever. I'm
saying Shaq's though.
Oh no, Shaq's isn't. But I do think that. I think the application. Well, who knows? I mean, and maybe it's not about packing it away, right? Let's not talk about a critical wave that's that big.
I guess
if a wave's that big, you can get it way, way out back, and you should be able to get it so far out back that you should be able to, if you're good, pack it away before.
If you're a downwinder, you can go out, upwind, Shaq's, pack it away, and be on your way downwind outside the reef, and then hit the critical waves.
Yes,
and then surf the crap out of it to the inside, and then
that's what I see. I agree. You need like a longer wave field that you can get upwind of, pack it away, surf through the wave field, relaunch, and then
like
sail back
thinking
up.
About like Shaq's, it's like for me, it's always so short-lived on the wave. It's like
we use a wing,
like you crack onto the wave, you're surfing the hell out of it. It's critical. It's scary. You get out of the white water, you get your wing up, and then you get out the set quickly again to get upwind to do it again, right? To think about doing that with a peri-wing, it's like scary, right?
Well, I think
that's scary. Those days,
yes.
I think that the session in particular that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, you need to just.
Well, you're saying head high, Shaq's head high.
It's like magical when it's like that size. Yeah. I'm saying that's like the kind of like, could you do it in those conditions? I think it'd be cool, but
I think I would just use a wing.
Yeah. Okay. But I think that's the difference with the wing.
Okay.
The wing, it's kind of like an extension of windsurfing, right? It's an active sail that you use consistently to power and depower and power yourself into waves. And it's an active part of your surfing. Whereas this is more about not having that, right?
Yeah.
This is about attacking the wave field with nothing on you. And I think it's probably better application is probably more like the 2 to 4 foot days, right? Like that's probably the better application where you're
being in the waves, like crashing in the waves, holding a wing and having your board. Yeah, sucks. If you had a peri-wing in your hand, worse, because it's a plastic, it's like a bag,
trash bag,
right? With lines and all around you. If you had it packed away securely, then safer. For sure.
It'd be better than just taking pipe out the wing.
Your board, yeah. Without the wing, oh my god.
Come on, getting wrecked with the wing.
Like,
it's the worst.
That's why my shoulder's all messed up. It's from those times of getting wrecked in the waves and like having my that's like
Yeah, I don't think that's why. I think there's a million reasons why your shoulder's fucked up. No, getting wrecked in good sized waves with an inflated wing.
Yeah, it sucks.
Dude, it's like because you could feel it, right? Like when you're getting rocked around with your board on a leash and your wing on a leash, and then you feel when you think you're out of it, and then it catches it, and just like you feel it just rip you away, right?
Not as bad as when like a kite.
Oh my god, a kite! No, yeah, that's what I will never kite again. I'm still happy you do.
Lightly used wing 3 or 4 times for sale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't know. I think there's an application there that's pretty cool, and I think getting on bigger stuff, if I could truly pack it away, zip it shut or strap it shut where I knew it was going to come out, I would say it's much better than being in big waves with a wing.
Like this is a good start, right?
It's a great start. It worked awesome.
Knowing that I was using like a backpack.
But if you fall, it's coming out.
It's gone. Yeah, done.
You fall on a wave, 100%, it's shooting right out. Those little snaps aren't going to work.
No,
that's why I'm bringing this up for all you engineers out there. We need to come up with the most handy dandy go gadget fucking peri-wing stoking.
So let's thinking about the BRM that got launched. He launched it. It's a smaller company.
So props to Greg. Way to fucking keep it a secret,
dude. Yeah,
like, how did you develop this shit with
no idea?
And then just drop it. and everybody's caught with their
nowhere.
out of nowhere, and everybody's caught with their pants down. All the big brands cannot get anything to market for like a year, and everybody's just buying from him at full price. It's great. I'm so happy for him.
So, and thinking that a lot of these brands,
Boss.
Yeah, I don't know how many of these brands, but it's got to be, let's say there's 25 of them. 4 to 5 to 6 of these brands had a peri-wing stashed away in their closet that they've been working on, that they didn't see the light, that they couldn't figure out, that they were too busy with everything else, right? Like these corporations, they've got so much going on, right? So much. And
God, you're in the middle of it with North right now, right?
Thank God this guy, Greg, has a lot going on as well, but sees the light of where this could be and develops it and launches it to market to give us all a little bit of like, but the pocket, what was it? The pocket wing?
Pocket wing. I mean, you can't take it away from Sam and them.
Yeah,
developing that first. It was incredible.
It was just,
and you saw people do it. I just think it just until you saw.
I think the going upwind thing.
It changed the way we thought about us. Well, when you saw something flying that resembled the wing you were used to seeing in the air as a kite, all of a sudden you were like, "Oh, holy shit! He's holding a little kite," and you're like, "I could do that."
Yeah.
Like, whereas like the pocket wing, I'm watching Spencer and Sam and those guys, and it's like a parachute for the space shuttle. Like it opens, it's got a little bit of shape to it, but it's just catching wind and it's kind of rattling around, and your job is to just hang on to it. Yeah, 2 handles, which is
you can put
very challenging. I never gave enough work. Obviously, there's a lot of folks using them and getting on foil, but the BRM to me, coming from a kiting background, it just made sense. Like as soon as I had it in my hand, I was like, oh, I know what to do with this. And then we just did that trim adjustment, and even more so, it feels more intuitive, more like a kite, moves through the window more predictably.
I'd have to do a downwinder with it.
We need to try
a wing with it.
This is all based on standing on the beach because we haven't had wind.
To try to make sense out of why Greg would launch it like he did and then make an adjustment. Did he already know about that adjustment, or did he have that adjustment later as an afterthought? Because
I bet it's as an afterthought. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Because I think these probably just I'm getting it's Gen 1. They're just playing with stuff.
But it's easier to fly like it was before it was tuned.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know. I guess like flying on the beach, it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell.
When you fly it from the front lines, I'd have to ride it to see if it truly is easier as a beginner in the first configuration or the second configuration. For sure, the second configuration is a lot more in tune with how I would want to fly it, right? It's a little bit more reactive. It doesn't stall as easy, and it's a little bit easier to fly.
But that stalling function when it's real windy it's
stalling way too easy.
Yeah. No, it's stalled really easy. But that's part of getting it out of the air, right? I mean, I don't know. Everybody, I feel like everybody has their own technique for getting it out of the air too.
No, for sure.
I think that there's there's advancements on each piece of this that are going to happen.
Do like a whole
technical
a technical talk, and there
you should do, yeah.
But there are a ton of videos out there. I haven't even watched. There's I don't know.
Yeah, I think talking about our experience helps, because I remember when I'm listening to stuff, it's just you've watched the videos or whatever, but hearing people have their actual application and how they're using it, right? I do think the magic, I think maybe talking boards with peri-wing too a little bit. I mean, I think we're all kind of trying to figure out that, but it is not you don't want to go out there on a sinker board.
No.
The amount of stress that you put, I mean, if you're 22 years old and you can bench 240 and you weigh 140, then sure, I think go for it. But you really want to be on something that can feel as surfy as you need it to be, but still be buoyant enough and efficient. I mean, I'm on a 60 liter. I'm probably on probably too light, probably too low a literage, right? I'm fine on it because I ride pretty, 45 liter, 50 liter for my wing board. that I'm not using straps. It's like a semi-sunk. I mean, it's sunk, right? But but it feels good. But I think, I'm doing. Frank's making me a 6.0 70 liter, right? And that's going to be my board. But I'm also having to make me a 50 liter because you never know. You got to try. You got to try
So in the beginning,
the one that sings too. Because maybe it'll feel that much better to be 20 liters and a few inches lighter.
Yeah. So staying on the peri-wing subject of just the peri-wing and the belt in itself is, I think whoever comes out with a really good belt
Mystic.
could sell more belts than whatever their peri-wing would be. Because all these companies, like I saw Ensis, I saw, all these guys have it. AF Fest, they've got one. The Ozone's going to come with, like Fly Surfer North. Like all these guys are going to come out with a peri-wing. But I think they're back to the drawing board because they need it to perform better than they thought it was. Because it's not a downwind machine. It needs to go upwind so we can surf with it.
Yeah, you need to be able to sail it.
It needs to be able to sail upwind. If you does not sail upwind, and do not launch the product
because track, like tack and jibe and move it through the window. You need to be able to do all those things.
I've never seen anybody tack with one yet. I'm definitely trying to tack with it.
I think they're tacking with
tack is like an upwind, right? Like,
an upwind tack. Yeah, I think it's happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if not, you'll do it. I'm sure.
No, I mean, I don't know, but
you're just.
I want to.
You're such a nut. I mean, I want to figure it out
for sure.
Too.
So, and I really like the side stuff.
Yeah,
if it's rigid enough, I love this. I just don't like
I don't love it either.
For me, I just don't like everyone was shoving the parachute in the stack, and then I don't know why they have these straps on the outside for the bar. Like it just seems useless. I just grab it, and I roll the bar itself. I get the lines out of the way, and I grab the bar, and I roll the bar in with the parachute, and I use the bar as leverage, and it's like a little, like it's all tough.
Yeah.
And
I know.
Shove it in.
I already explained your nice little envelope with the sticker and the whole thing.
It's not even nice.
It's pretty nice.
Even if it does get tangled.
I mean, it's nice enough that I'm trying it next time I go out.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, I'm going to try the Dylan method because I do think that if you can pack it away like that and
just stuffing the
there's no
parachute.
There's no demos. Nobody's really come up with a technique. It's like there is a right technique for this. We're just all still figuring it out. I got mine pretty dialed. I can, 5 stuffs. It's away, out of the way. All lines are in. Bars away. Nothing gets tangled.
I like rolling it up, having it in my hand. Like it's.
You like to wave it around.
It's all like I can't like throw it out all quickly and like get myself up and going.
Well, there's two things, right? There's two different things.
Surfing. That's the way to pack it away for a downwinder. If I was gonna surf, I'd like hold it, and I'd probably hold the bar in one hand and the chute in the other if I needed one hand to surf or whatever. But I don't know.
I think there's the sailing, collapsing, redeploying, which is like its own thing. Versus like if you're packing it away, you just want it to be put away in a way that when you wipe out, you're going to be able to get it back out, and you're going to have some sort of organization and confidence that you're going to be able to relaunch it without a whole clusterfuck.
Yeah. I've hardly experienced it.
I know. But I think we've experienced enough to see all the potential, right? And I think there's look, it's Gen 1. There's so far for this to go.
So parachute, garbage bag thing. Yeah. V2, V3, cool. Ensis and all these other companies, whatever, coming out them. I can see them. They're like, gong, like, they're all going to come out, but they've got to be able to go upwind, be better than the BRM. They've got to be cheaper than the BRM. Right.
Well, that shouldn't be too hard.
Which shouldn't be too hard for a large company, but it's hard to get, get this development going, which is going to be sick. And then
I'm just happy that the bar was set high.
Yeah.
I think it's great that we have such a piece of equipment that I'm like, I have so much growing to do on this. I mean, we just trimmed them. What's that going to look like? Whatever. We've got size ranges. I think it's only up from here,
which is amazing. And that's why no one else has come out to market in the last 4 months, is because
the
BRM is so good. It wasn't just like a quick kick to market, quick buck. This is a passion project that it is really working. And this update, like this new configuration, it kind of, it's
It's keeping the progression going.
Yeah, which is amazing. So that's
just
cool. And the belt, whatever, all of that stuff.
What a wild journey this sport's been, right? Like to get into foiling at the beginning of this thing.
So tell me about your board journey real quick.
Okay.
Because we were talking about foils. You've got all that figured out. You're not like on the hunt, but you're on the hunt for a board.
Still waiting for. I think the most innovative thing coming out this year is definitely KT.
Yeah, for sure.
The aggressive concave on I don't know what they're calling that, and like what that does. I got to spend a little bit of time talking with Kane about it when we were sharing a shuttle, and it really it adds more drag, but it adds more lift. And so basically it creates a situation where you can ride a smaller foil that's creating the same lift as a bigger foil. And yes, it is creating more drag, but it's smaller. So it kind of balances back out, right? So I think it's really cool. And I think that's interesting. But yeah, outside of that, I'm, super happy on my code foils. So boards, look, I think downwinding, we did the whole in 1 year or 2 years from where, Dave kind of started things with his boards when he put out the Barracuda, because really the Barracuda was the beginning of what modern downwind boards look like, or downwind, right? Before that, everybody was just fucking around with these like short, fat things that didn't make sense. So you get that. And then within really 2 years or commercially almost like 1 year.
About the whole evolution.
I know.
About your evolution.
I know. So I was I got on the Frank board, right? Like
I just don't want you to go through the whole history of
you teed me up.
You're like, in 1964,
exactly.
There was a board made out of wood.
Balsa wood.
Carved from the tree.
Yeah, I did see on the Jaws store at Jaws, there is a board above there. Looks very similar to the shape of Frank's boards. I'm pretty sure. Yes.
That's how I got it.
No.
No, I'm just talking about like your progression of, yes, you were like looking for the perfect downwind board and you've gone through a bunch, right? And then how it's merged over to trying to find the perfect peri-wing wing board, which you haven't been winging, let's be honest. I don't know if you're going to wing, but you definitely will.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
And then foil drive board.
Yeah. So I think this is all about, the mid-length, right? Yeah. The mid-length is changing everything, right? It's the board that can do it all, especially now that we've added.
The board in the last 4 months, I've sold the most of.
Yeah.
And then I have the most in stock.
Mm-hmm.
The KT
Super K.
Those KT Super Ks are amazing.
Perfect.
They're not amazing for foil drive because of their like that step bottom. So you've got to use the short battery.
They pretty much don't work, yeah.
No, they work. Some of them work, but
the big
that's difficult because it could be amazing for all aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't actually market it for proning, but you can prone it too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they don't like. I looked at the specs and someone's like, "Can I prone it?" And I like looked at the specs and
it's kind of big.
And I use it. It's big. It's roundy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can definitely prone it.
Yeah, it's a great. It's a magical board. So I had my first mid length I got was the Enigma from Puerto. Mike Pedigo shapes that thing. Really beautiful board. And it's like a 5.6 55 liter, and that's what I was using prone and with the foil drive. And then when I got the peri-wing, I was out in Hood and I liked it so much. I was thinking about getting the smaller one. So I even hit Mike up and I was going to order one, but then I was there. The KT warehouse was there. I love KT. And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to try. You were all hype on the Super K. So you were like, get the 60 liter and you set me up with that. And so I got that thing, and man, that board is crazy. I just couldn't have been happier. Granted, I was on my first journey with the peri-wing, which was just blowing my mind every session. But that board it's like a small dragonfly, it's quick off the water, super stable, plenty of surface area. I think for peri-winging, it's pretty perfect because by having a boxier back end, it just feels more like a wing board. You're more comfortable out there. It's easy to get square on it. You got to like lay down, get onto your knees, get one knee up, just like a wing start. So I think there's some real positives about that. I'm moving on to something that looks more like a mini downwind board, narrower, probably going to be a little more tippy, but it's going to be faster, more high performance. But I've got it kind of figured out.
Did you listen to Geo's podcast that we did.
I haven't had a chance to listen to that one yet.
So
No.
he bought the 88 liter. He's paddling it, but he bought it because he's thinking about peri-winging and he wants a dual board.
Yes. The 88 liter Dragon.
88 liter Dragonfly. It's a 6.6.
And I think that's probably
By
what you're going to be
18?
going to. Yeah.
Something like that.
So I'm going a little shorter, just a little
That's
wider.
what Roy bought the 88 liter Dragonfly 2 carbon, the same one that
so he's not going to
peri-winging. And I got his 70 liter peri-wing board, which is a Super K.
Yeah, with those really nice repairs on it.
Yeah, beautiful. It's just it's the details on that.
It was great.
On those.
Riding in Dylan's car, I look up at the roof because he's got his board mounted. And I'm like,
in my minivan,
in the minivan, and so I just finished riding with Roy like a month ago or 2 months ago when he got that board from Big Winds, and it was in pretty great shape. When I come back, and there's like black dings and patches all over. I'm like, dude, what did you wipe out on your golf cart with this thing, or like throw it off your car or something? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. It's pretty messed up.
But great board. Good. And so I
good trade in. So that's my pair of.
Oh, you scored. It was a great trade in. I mean, Roy's always passing on good gear. Yeah, I think that's kind of the money, is having something that gets you out of the water.
So what is Frank making you then?
Well, so I'm having him make me a 6.0, 18 and a half, 70 liter. Very similar to his Downwind board shape.
That pinned out tail.
Yeah, the whole thing. It's pretty much a Downwind board, just a little fatter.
3 inches in the back or
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Shorter than what it would appear in specs.
Oh, yeah. So so I would say like, if it's a 6.0, it's really like a 5.5, you know, and which is I think kind of where I want to be. But it'll move in the water fast, and I'm sure it'll have its challenges, but I think it'll be a good board. And then I'm having to make me a 50 liter because I think that's a little big. Really, at the end of the day, when you're peri-winging, look, if you're in Hood River or you're in Maui and you're only going out and it's lit and you've got plenty of power, sure, you can go down to like a 50 liter or a 40 liter or something smaller. It'll be harder on your shoulders. Maybe there's some technique. You get good. I'm sure you can get it up, right? But I think for here going out in the ocean and stuff, I want to have something that's got a little more meat. Easier to get out of the water, easier to paddle if I have to do the slog in, which, you know, is inevitable. We're all going to have it. And that's the fear of this, not having a paddle, right? You go out there with a paddle and an 8-foot board, you can tackle the ocean. Wind, no wind, storm, doesn't matter. Peri-wing, but I do think peri-wings, I mean, you could carry 2 wings on a run.
I think that's talking cool. About, right?
And that's a cool idea.
That was a good conversation.
Yeah.
And
because
I about that. Just you testing, right?
I tried it?
No, I had a peri-wing.
Oh, yeah.
Back. I had the other one in my front, and I was like, and that's when I came out of the water. I'm like, why wouldn't you take 2 peri-wings with you? Right?
I agree.
One, the wind dies. It's lighter. It's stronger.
You get a tangle. You get a tear.
Like a tangle that you just can't fix. Then, you just pop it up and continue on. So I think
when you're
people will be taking 2 peri-wings.
Yeah, when you're just trying to pop up too, it's like you have a bigger range for the peri-wing you're using too, right? To try and sail something. Like it's like winging. You know, if your only goal is to get on foil and you don't have to worry about sailing upwind, you can use a really big wing because as soon as you hold it up,
your life,
you just run with the wind and you take all the energy out of it.
Pack it away.
So you could have, if you're supposed to be on a 4 meter, right? The wind's blowing 22 and that's kind of like perfect for a 4 meter. Like you could have a 5 meter and whatever, you'd be fine, make it work. So it's easy to have a backup and have an option for if the wind shifts or whatever. I think it gives you, it's your easiest way to have some kind of extra safety out there as we go further and further offshore and on longer and longer runs, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there is more risk to these peri-wings than a paddle. Like I mean, you can break your paddle, and we've all done it. Yeah. But I think less likely.
Wind could go to 0 and I could still paddle up on foil.
Yes.
With a paddle.
With a bump.
You know,
and you paddle up.
Yeah. There's complications there, but we're not talking about all the complications because if not, we'd spend days talking about it.
The SUP is a better voyaging vehicle, probably.
But it's harder.
But it's harder and it's less freeing because you have to be on bigger equipment and you have to carry stuff with you. So, yeah, I think it just, the peri-wing just speaks to this kind of ever evolving foiling, and it really teaches us that foiling is it, right? It's about the foil. It's about flying on the water, and how are we powering that? Is it wind? Is it your shoulders? Is it a paddle? Like, what is it that's getting us to be on foil? And that's what we're obsessed with. And I think this shows that the journey is going to keep going, right? Because this is going to be crazy. This is going to change everything. Like, it already has changed. Well, everything for me in foiling changed when the peri-wing came out. All of a sudden, I can do things in a different way that I was already obsessed about, and now I can just do it in a completely different way. Yeah. And now I'm looking at, like, how do I apply that to all the other things that I do? It's cool.
Yeah. Like windsurfing, downwinding, paddling, surfing, winging, kiting. The one thing that unifies all of us is the foil. Like, we're all, when it comes to a foil, we're all one sport, right? And what is it? Like, the foil drive, all of that is, we're all unified by one thing. It's the foil. So we all have this, like, it's so cool.
We all have the same disease.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. And yeah, anyways, so I think we should, we'll have to see how it goes. It's cool. We're going to be applying this to Puerto Rico conditions all winter. Everybody's got it, the whole crew, right? Everybody's geared up and ready to go, and frothing. Boards are being milled as we speak. And I think it's going to be a wild winter of, like, crazy adventures. I mean, we've already had a couple epic tow days on, like, perfect size waves. It's been super fun.
And Puerto Rico so far, so
really loving that new North board too. I'm gonna have to buy one of this, but just a little North plug there for you. The Vert. That's a great board.
Yeah, we've had some really cool tow sessions, amazing, beautiful, glassy waves, and
just perfect foiling waves. And it was such a great way to come back to Puerto Rico for me, because it's like, I'm so obsessed, and I've been downwinding and whatever. And like, downwinding is great, and I come back, I'm like, this place, holy shit, what a beautiful place to be surfing in the ocean.
Yeah. And then we could go on with everything. But yeah, it was really, like, we talked a lot about peri-wing, and I think it's a lot.
Yeah.
We gave a lot, and then the trips and all that stuff. Yeah. But, like, we could talk about foil drive. We could talk about all this.
I know. Well, because all this, like, you're just
jet ski towing, like, you're just
we're still just tip of the iceberg on a lot of it, right? Yeah. Foil drive, tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
maybe both of us have probably had 30, 40 sessions, maybe?
Me?
Maybe you're probably like 10.
Man, yeah, 10 at the max.
Yeah, I'm probably like 30 sessions probably on the foil drive. And I just, like, I see the potential is just going to be so cool this winter.
Yeah.
In those conditions. Anyways, I think
stoked.
Yeah,
we've had a lot of cutouts.
That was great.
Hope I can make some magic.
Dude, you just edit the shit out of this.
Crap out of it. We're gonna be like, what did it?
And if you're a winger, or you're just somebody who wants to get into downwinding, or you're just stoked on checking out the peri-wing, buy one from Greg. This guy, he's got 1 year. He's gonna milk it. He crushed it. I can't say enough about how good the product is. Like, it is blowing my mind. So
sure.
Do it. All right, good stuff. Cheers.
Yeah, man.